In this week's Parshat, Parshat Bo, the last 3 of the 10 plagues are described, the last of which is the smiting of the firstborn, Makat Bechorot. Before that takes place, Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to Pharaoh. He warns him of what is going to happen. And he says that that night at midnight, when this plague will take place, so all of Egypt will cry out in anguish. And then he says a very special verse, that is the verse that we're going to contemplate today. He says, Lo yechratz kelev lishono. U'lechol b'nei Yisrael, all of the Jewish people, not even a dog, will bark. And then the continuation is, the man teidun, asher yafle Hashem ben Mitzrayim o ben Yisrael, in order that you shall know that Hashem separates between Egypt and between Israel. So, since this is the climax of all of the 10 plagues, it's very, very significant, the fact that this particular phenomenon is mentioned and is emphasized. The fact that even a dog will not bark. So there must be something special about dogs here in relation to this last plague. In the Talmud, in the last chapter of Masechet Brachot, there is a whole section in the Gemara dealing with dreams. And it says there that if a person dreams of a dog, he sees a dog in his dream, he should wake up in the morning, and the first thing that he should say this verse, U'lechol b'nei Yisrael, lo yechratz kelev lishono. That for all the Jewish people, not a dog barked. Before another verse may come into his mouth, a negative verse, this is a positive verse for the Jewish people. And he should say that immediately before another negative verse might enter his mouth, which is Va'klavim azei nefesh. That dogs are very audacious or bold of spirit. The word azei nefesh, boldness, has different implications, some of which are positive, some of which are negative. In this context, it's most negative. Sometimes azut nefesh means greediness. Some of the interpretations say that in this context it means the dogs are very greedy. Lo yadu sova, they are never satiated. Some people say that this verse refers to the fact that dogs are the most promiscuous of animals, which means that there's a relation between dogs and actually sexuality, or prostitution even. That's why in one of the verses in the Torah, that there are only 3 times in the whole Torah that the word dog is mentioned, and one of them is in a comparison to a prostitute. So that's another negative, very, very negative boldness about dogs. There is one verse about dogs that is a positive verse. It says that if there is an animal that is found in the field that has not been slaughtered in a kosher manner, treifa, that is treif, la kelev tashtichunoto, give it to the dog. Like the idiom even in English, throw a bone, or this is actually a good piece of meat to the dog. The sages say that this is actually reward. It's a reward for the fact that the dogs did not bark at this climax of the 10th plague. They were rewarded and given food that we should feed them with all of the things that are non-kosher for ourselves, give it to the dogs. So once more, the sages say that if you dream of a dog, pick a good verse, because dreams follow the mouth, or follow the solution. There are 2 different versions of a saying in the sages, that if a person dreams and you want to give a solution to the dream, so it depends just exactly on that verse that you pick to say with your mouth. So pick a good verse, and it'll be a good expression, a good phenomenon of dogness. What is so great about the fact, why is this emphasized in the Torah that the dogs didn't bark? this is an expression, the way that it's explained in some of the deeper commentaries, of the fact that even in nature, the distinction, differentiation between the Jewish people and the Egyptians permeated nature itself. This is not part of the plague per se. It's something that is observing. It's consciousness of the plague from the outside, that nature was looking at the plague, and nature itself realized and experienced the existential difference between Egypt and Israel. And here, nature in its totality is symbolized by the dog. Lo yechratz kelev lishono, that the dog, he doesn't even move his tongue. That's the literal reading. He doesn't move his tongue, meaning that he doesn't bark, he doesn't bite, he doesn't do anything negative, because he himself is experiencing the miracle or the revelation of the divinity that is taking place whilst the Egyptian firstborns are being killed, and at the same time the Jewish people is being redeemed, is being healed and being redeemed. By nature, when dogs bark, people are afraid. A barking dog scares, especially it says that it scares women and little children, especially a woman that's pregnant. If a dog barks, it could even cause, God forbid, a miscarriage. So the fact that the dogs barked at this time that all of the Jewish people were now preparing to gather together and to leave Egypt, they were all on the move. The fact is that the dogs made the Jewish people feel secure in their trust in Hashem. No one was afraid. It says there are three miraculous things about the dogs not barking. One, the sages say that since the dogs have a very, very acute sense of smell, they smell danger, and actually the sages say that they smell when the angel of death, when there's a plague or something that has to do with death, that they smell it and they start to bark. They start to warn and to bark. And now the death was all over Egypt, and still they didn't bark. When did it happen? It happened in the middle of the night. The middle of the night is called the second guard of the night, and that is the time that dogs by nature bark. And nonetheless they didn't bark. A third thing it says is that in the middle of the night, when dogs see people getting up and moving around and walking, they bark, because they're not used to people moving in the middle of the night. So they didn't bark because of the people. They didn't bark because it's their nature to bark at night. And they didn't bark because even though there was now a plague of death taking place amongst the Egyptians, they realized they experienced in some deeper, profound way the supernatural element involved, and they didn't bark. So we have to give them their bone. And there are two other things it says that the dogs merited. One thing is that they merited, because of not barking, they merited to say a very, very special song, to sing a song to Hashem. There's a corpus of 70 different verses that are attributed to 70 different creations and animals, each of which sings a song to its creator, to God. The last of the 70 is the dog. And he sings a very, very special song. He says, he turns to all, approaches and addresses all of creation and says to all of creation, come, let us bow down and bless Hashem who has made us, our maker. How did he merit to sing this song? So the sages say that he merited because of this special phenomenon of lo yechratz kelev lishono, that he didn't bark at the night. He didn't scare at the Jewish people. He not only did not scare the Jewish people, he gave the nature itself sealed the trust and the confidence and the joy of the Jewish people in the exodus from Egypt, whilst this most terrible plague was taking place amongst the Egyptians. Another third thing it says that he merited. There are three things that the dogs merited. One is they merited that we thank them. We thank dogs by throwing bones to dogs, by giving them to eat. The second thing is that they merited a very spiritual thing, to sing a most beautiful song to the Creator. And the third thing is that from the dung of the dogs are processed and prepared the skins of the kosher animals for parchments upon which are written the Sefer Torah and Tefillin and Mezuzot. The processing is using dog dung. So actually there's just three different results, positive results, that the dog received by not barking. In the commentaries it all says that we have to learn from dogs. The dogs are most loyal and devoted, dedicated to their masters. In the same way that dogs, even though they have all of the negative properties that we said before, but just as they are bold, often in a very negative way, so the Jewish people has to be bold in a very positive way. It says that the Jewish people is the boldest of peoples, and the dogs are the boldest of animals. Boldest, again, not in the sense that they're the most courageous or the strongest. They're stronger animals than dogs, but they have some inner boldness, azut, that no other animal possesses. And once more, it can be negative, but it can be positive. And the positive is the loyalty and the dedication. In this particular sense, they are the expression that nature itself, looking at what is taking place. Nature could object. Nature could say, no, I don't want to have an existential differentiation between the Jewish people and the Egyptians. But no, here the nature bowed down, just like a dog bows down. That's why he says this verse, that it's all bowed down. He bowed down and recognizes the presence of Hashem. So here also the dogs expressed for all of nature the gratitude and the praise of Hashem in the exodus of Egypt.